All right, so for the last page, we're doing tangent and cotangent, and you're going to graph each function, identify the period, the x-intercepts, and the asymptotes. Now, remember, we changed this to 1/3 tangent of 1/2 x, so your b value is 1/2. To find the period, it is pi over b. Now remember, you will have your formula sheet, and it does have, for tangent, the formula pi over b. So if that's something you're worried about not remembering, you are going to have a reference for that. So pi over 1/2 is going to result in 2 pi. Okay, that's your period. Alright, I'm not going to fill in these equations until the end. So after I find the period, I just need you to follow with me, okay? And then I want you to ask questions. To find the x-intercepts, you take the x-intercepts of the parent function and you multiply them by the reciprocal of b. So you multiply them by 1 over b. So for the tangent, I know that many of us have these memorized by now because we've done this several times. It's negative pi, 0, and pi. But if you're worried about getting them mixed up, remember you do have your parent function. So you can just look at the parent function graph and you have negative pi, 0, and pi. Okay, so you can use those, and then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So if b is 1/2, what's the reciprocal? 2. I'm a little nervous because I look out and I see some of you have your earbuds in when I'm explaining things that are going to be on your test tomorrow. So let's make some good decisions. These are going to be your x-intercepts, okay? And then I go ahead and I graph those right away. So I do 0, 2 pi, negative 2 pi. Now you have to stay in your entire graph. Some of you didn't do that. So if you go 1, 2, yep, you have an intercept. This one would be off the graph, so I don't have to do it. But you have to make sure that you are spanning whatever graph you're given. Okay, then to do the x-intercept equation, it is simply this format. To do your x-intercept equation, you pick one of your x-intercepts. So pick any x-intercept from the graph, and you add that to the period times n. So based on my x-intercepts, I can pick any one of these. So I'm going to pick 0. If I do 0 plus the period times n, 0 plus 2 pi n is just 2 pi n. Okay, now you could use any x-intercept. So if you put 2 pi plus 2 pi n, that's correct. If you put negative 2 pi plus 2 pi n, that's correct. Any of your x-intercepts that are on the graph, you can put in your equation.
So do we need to put like the x-intercepts anywhere, or can we just graph them and then put the equation?
Yep, you can just graph them and then put the equation. Yep, that's fine. Now, the asymptotes, the equation is given to you. Again, you will have the information box on your sheet. So for tangent, this is your equation. So you have pi over 2b. So pi over 2 times 1/2, because that's my b, plus pi over b times n. So this is the equation that is given on your chart. Now 2 times 1/2 is 1, so that's going to leave me with pi. Pi divided by 1/2 is 2 pi, so pi plus 2 pi n. This is where your asymptotes occur. That is your equation. If you've done this correctly, this will end up being your period times n. Okay, so 2 pi n in this case. And then you can plug in the values for n. Okay, you can plug in n is 0. I always like to do that first because I know this is going to end up being 0. So pi is one of your asymptotes. You can plug in 1. So pi plus 2 pi times 1 is 3 pi. And then you can plug in negative 1. So pi minus 2n, or 2 pi, when you plug in negative 1 for n, would be negative pi. Okay, so you can plug in n to 0, 1, and negative 1 to find your asymptotes. Okay, now the asymptotes should not occur at the same place. You also need to make sure your asymptotes are dashed. Okay, so it's not a solid line, and I do want you to use like a marker or a highlighter, one of those. Okay, so here's my pi. Here is 3 pi. And really, once you find two of them, you know what the spacing is. On my graph, this is 2 apart, so I'm just going to go 1, 2. Remember, they're periodic, so they repeat, so 1, 2. Okay, so you do need to have all 4 of these asymptotes on there. You are missing the ones that are at negative 3 pi and 3 pi. Go ahead and add them. Okay, and then it's tangent, so it is going to go up or down from left to right. Goes up. So from left to right. So again, if you need a reminder, you have the parent function, right? So you can look at that. No, Bridget, sit over here, please. All right, and then this is your graph. Okay. All right, now let's look at the cotangent. Okay, so the cotangent, the period is still